Hello. So Tatiana asked Sergey if I could show her how to make an apple pie. And I'll be really honest, I don't make them very often. My family is not a huge fan. We prefer French apple tarts, but I'm gonna make one for you. So in America, most of us like to make life easy, so we purchase Pillsbury pie crusts. We like to use Pillsbury though because it seems to be the best. There's generic versions, but just try to stick with Pillsbury. Every grocery store has it. It's in the refrigerated section, and it comes 2 of them per box, and they're rolled up, and I'll show you how to form them. So this recipe calls for 1 pie crust, and then we're going to do a crumb topping. So I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so just open your package here. There's very minimal effort with one of the frozen pie crusts or the refrigerated. And you can keep a box in your freezers and just pull it out and let it thaw in the refrigerator. So you just unroll it, kind of make sure that there are no holes, and then literally we lay it in here as such. I just made a hole. And you just go around here and kind of flatten it. My son's dog is here visiting, so if you see a sweet puppy in the video, it's my son's dog Diesel. These, get down. Okay, now a lot of times there's extra runoff, not too much on this one, so you can just kind of form the crust. When you make a homemade one, you can make it larger, of course, and make a real pretty crust around the edge, which is very pretty for holidays. Apple pie is very significant for 4th of July usually. And then I just go around and press my thumb between my first knuckle and just kind of make it look as pretty as possible, which isn't very pretty, truthfully, but you get the idea. We'll just finish this up. Okay, now all I need to do is I'm going to set this aside so you can see this. And I've bought Honey Crisp, but any type of cooking apple, I'm going to try one that is both tart and sweet. And you need about 5½ cups of peeled, cored, and sliced apples. And a real quick way to do this is peel this with your peeler. And then I learned to cut the cheeks off. So just quickly slice the cheeks off of the apple, leaving the core pretty much intact, and makes life very easy. And then just slice them fairly thin, not too thin. This is probably a good measurement here. And just quickly do the rest of your apples before they turn brown. So I'll finish doing these, and then we'll move on to the next step. So in America we use a vegetable peeler. I know a lot of people in Ukraine, when I visited, Sergey's mother used a knife, and you certainly could do that. This just makes life a lot easier and faster. There are actually apple peeler slicers. They look kind of like a real contraption, and a lot of people have them. I do not, so I just quickly do this by hand. It takes you probably 10-15 minutes. Okay. So I've sliced 5½ cups of apples. Truthfully, I didn't measure, I just assume it's enough. A tablespoon of lemon juice goes on here. I'm not going to measure because I'm just going to kind of wing it. And this will prevent them from turning too brown. Get in your cuts. Okay, so let's mix that up. Next, I need to add 1/2 cup of white granulated sugar. So white sugar needs to go in. There's our 1/2 cup of sugar. So just sprinkle it on top. Mix it up. Now I need 1/4 cup of packed brown sugar. which of course there's dark brown and there's light brown. This calls for light brown, so if you have to use dark, it's okay. Just means there's more molasses in there. So when you have to pack a sugar, in the US it'll say a packed cup, and you fill the cup almost full. Can you see it? Almost full, and then pat it down and kind of bring it off. So it's kind of nicely packed, and when you plop it, it's going to come out in its form. That means you did it right. So we'll mix that in as well. We also need 3 tablespoons of flour. This is your thickening agent. So we've had our sweetener, now our thickening, so that when all the juices come out, it will thicken up a bit. That way your piece of pie won't be too messy. And one more, so 3 tablespoons of flour. Then we're going to do a half a teaspoon of cinnamon. And for this, I will measure, so a half a teaspoon of cinnamon. Just shake it off, doesn't have to be too precise. And a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. And this is the nutmeg. So you have ground cinnamon and ground nutmeg. Just a 1/4 teaspoon on the nutmeg. It has kind of a stronger flavor. Now we're going to mix all these things up really well. And then this is the filling for our pie. And our filling is basically done. The lemon juice that we put in, we showed it. The lemon juice that I put in will prevent the apple slices from turning brown as they oxidize. Smells delicious already. We heated the oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. We'll look up the calculation in Celsius. Okay, now we're going to take the apples. We're going to pile these all into the pie crust. Is this showing correctly? So 190 is your Celsius. So 375 is 190 Celsius. And we're really piling these on here so that as they cook down, you'll have a nice full apple pie. And just make sure that you peel the apples, because truthfully they don't cook down and they just taste terrible in a pie. So peel whatever apple variety you choose. You can use part Granny Smith, part Red Delicious, pretty much any cooking apple. Okay, that looks great. Now we're going to quickly make the topping, because I'm doing a crumb topping for this pie. And we'll get our ingredients out for that. And we are going to do, sorry, I'm following a thing here, 3/4 of a cup of flour. There's my half a cup. And my 1/4. So 3/4 a cup of flour, 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, which again is just the white sugar. So 1/4 cup of white sugar, 3/4 cup of flour, 1/4 cup again of packed brown sugar. So this is a pretty sweet topping as well. Packed again. And then I have to take 1/3 cup of butter, room temperature. Good thing I've got one sitting out, half melted. So 3/4 of a cup of softened butter or margarine. It truthfully doesn't matter. I'm using butter because I happen to have some sitting out. Okay, so I have the butter, 2 kinds of sugar, and the flour in a bowl. And you can actually use a pastry blender. I happen to have bent mine terribly, so I'm just going to use a fork. You just want it to be like coarse crumbles, because we're actually going to pile this on top of the pie, and it makes a really lovely pie topping. This is called a Dutch apple pie. So you either do this type of topping, or you could also do a second pie crust and vent it, you know, with slits. But I think this one will be a little bit tastier for my family who doesn't really like apple pie. And I will show you guys how to do the French apple tart too. It's actually easier than a pie and so good. But you can see it's kind of coming together correctly. It's just kind of turning into crumbles. Just keep going until they're all pretty much incorporated. And after your wrist wants to fall off, you're about done. Okay. Now we're just going to take these crumbles and carefully kind of pour them on top, and don't worry if some spills off, it's really not a big deal. That's the beauty of these apple pies. Nothing's perfect. And just pile it around there as nice as you can, trying to cover most of it. The drips that fell. Okay, I think we're ready. Just get that one back down in there. So this is your apple pie, and we're going to put it again in a 375-degree oven, or 190 degrees Celsius. We're going to bake it for 50 minutes. It may come a point halfway through where your edges get a little bit too brown, and all you want to do is take foil and cut it into strips and kind of place it just around the crust, but not the middle part. So if it gets to that point, I'll show you, but we're going to go in the oven now. Ignore this temp. Our oven is not calibrated correctly, so it should be 375 or 190 degrees Celsius, 50 minutes. So I'm going to set it for 30 minutes just so that I can keep my eye on it and see if I need to cover the crusts. Okay, so the pie is finished. It's been baking for about 60 minutes or an hour, and we're going to let it cool for probably at least an hour, and then we can slice it. And my daughter's here and she thinks we're just ridiculous, so okay, that's good. And this is the way the pie looks after it has sat all evening long and cooled. Lovely, juicy, crunchy top. The crust looks amazing, and the bottom of the pie actually is nicely brown too. We like to serve it a la mode, which is called with a scoop of ice cream, vanilla ice cream on the side, and this is about as American as you can get. So hope you try it, and if you have any questions, just let us know.
Real French eggs.
I mean, literally the time it takes you to walk out this door, buy food and come back is about the time you would be at the end of our driveway.
Giant container for 6 eggs right there. French tomatoes. And the crack of a day, chocolate croissant. Yeah. Freshly baked. Yum yum. There's the water here. Day 3 in Paris.